Hey everyone, George here with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to another episode in our Bold Predictions webinar series. It's the last one of the year, but a really good one. It's titled Using OKRs to Create Alignment and Drive Profitability in Your Wine Business. And of course, OKRs stands for Objectives and Key Results. And it's just another way of setting goals and plans to achieve those goals. I don't think there's any one of us that in the wine industry that isn't looking for ways to be more efficient and be more profitable. I know we certainly are. Today's presenter is Heather Schmidt. She's a lot of fun. She does a great job. She is a growth consultant with Cruise & Company and a certified M+A Advisor with Exit Equity. Again, I think Heather does a really good job. So just as a reminder, we always pre-record these sessions a week or so in advance. The good news is Heather's watching the broadcast right along with you. So as questions pop into your mind, go ahead and put those into the chat feature and Heather can pick those off as they come in. You do not need to wait till the presentation is over. Okay, one final thing. I want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors allow us to continue to produce good quality content like this and deliver to our wine industry audience for free. So our presenting sponsor, Moss Adams and Baker Tilly, thank you for your support. And our series supporting sponsors, Mitroff Consulting, Executive Search and Recruitment Operation, Protea Financial, Wine Accountants, another great organization, and Wine Industry Careers. It's the WIN job board. It's wineindustrycareers.com. If you haven't used it, check it out. Okay, I think that about covers it. I'm going to hand it off to Heather and let her take it from here. Thanks again, everyone.
There are places ambition alone can't take you. For those, you need a partner, one who feels it in their bones, just like you do, gets what moves you inside and out, and together delivers you to that place you've been working towards all along. When you're taking on the impossible, meet the pros at making possible happen.
Thank you, George, so much for the introduction. I am thrilled to be joining the Wine Industry Network's Bold Prediction series. Thank you, everybody, for attending. It's really a pleasure to be here. Today, we're going to explore how objectives and key results, OKRs, can bring focus, alignment, and ultimately profitability to your business. If you have ever felt like your team is working hard, but not necessarily together, you're not alone. I see this again and again with clients. OKRs can fix that. A little bit about me, so you know who you're talking to today. I am a growth consultant with Cruise & Co., which is the firm that I'm representing today. What that means is I work with business owners, founders, leadership teams to help them get organized and grow their businesses. I'm also a mergers and acquisitions advisor for a firm called Exit Equity. And in this role, I help owners who are ready to sell their businesses, get their business ready for the market, and then find the right buyer for that owner. I'm also an entrepreneur. I co-founded Union Square Companies here. That's the parent name. It's actually Union Square Donuts on the East Coast. I'm originally from Boston. And in a previous life, in my previous career, I was a pastry chef, trained pastry chef in fine dining, in artisanal bakeries. And from there, I co-founded this bakery with another co-founder. And we grew that business to, I think we're at 8 locations now. And I was able to step out of the day-to-day operations a few years ago. And I was also, after Donut World, I made my way out to the West Coast where I was the CEO for a company called Seattle Coffee Works with multiple cafes. We had a roastery. We worked directly with farmers and growers across the world and ultimately grew that business and was able to sell it. So now the owners of that business are living their happiest lives in Germany. And it was a wonderful experience to learn that process of growing and selling a business. And I'm a certified exit planning advisor. Again, you can see a theme here, working with founders and owners to grow their businesses and have a happy, successful sale at that point when they want to do that. A little bit about Cruise & Co., what we do here. At the heart and soul of it, we're entrepreneurs first, and we are consultants seconds. We've all built, scaled, run businesses ourselves, so we really understand viscerally those challenges. We operate using what we call the growth method, and it's a management system for your business. It's a structured way to operate. It aligns your team, drives accountability, and ultimately you're going to get results out of that. We have a coaching section. We focus on strategy. We have fractional experts, and all under one roof to help this growth happen. Our mission at the end of the day, which is what drew me to this company in the first place, was to help entrepreneurs and their teams live their ideal lives. Again, like I was saying with the firm, we have everything you need under one roof. We have our strategy and coaching business. We have fractional CFOs, full stack finance, bookkeeping. We have a marketing division, HR division, fractional COO division, and mergers and acquisitions support as well. We do it all. We found that our clients who work with us, who with for at least 2 years experience 19% compound annual growth rate. And when clients use two or more of our services, that rate jumps to 22%. And overall, that is 3 times the average of a regular small to medium business. Okay, I promise we're going to stop talking about crews now. We'll get to the meat and potatoes of the presentation here today. But to sort of give a framework and a structure around objectives and key results, we first want to understand growth. We want to understand strategy. And at the end of the day, growth creates complexity. The dotted lines on these pillars symbolize where companies get stuck. Now, at some point in the business, in the beginning, it's a few people. We're all running around and doing every single job that comes our way. And when we start to grow and we jump up to that next revenue level, or the team starts to grow, priorities start to change and roles start to change. And as our business grows, more SKUs, more channels, more people, the communication and the alignment get harder. And every business hits this point. And OKRs, objectives and key results, help you break through that misalignment or that confusion. So at the heart of what we do with the growth method, this framework, is we focus on 4 areas. We have focusing on people, getting the right people in the right seats. We focus on strategy, where we want this business to go, and creating an action plan on how we're going to get there. And we focus on operations. Are we hitting our quality control measures? How tight are our operations? What's our meeting cadence like? And then that all is circled around finance. Are we using numbers to make decisions within our business? So, question for you: how do you currently set priorities for your business? No answer is a wrong answer here. Do you have quarterly meetings with a leadership team or a management team on a regular quarterly cadence? Do you have weekly meetings, ongoing discussion? We talk about things and maybe we set our priorities that way. Limited planning or doing a reactive approach. I like to call this triage mode, is actually very familiar to me when I started Union Square Donuts. Or no formal process in place. We're just kind of going with what the season is throwing at us. What's important here is that in order to have your goals be proactive, we need to set a structure of how we do that. And creating a meeting cadence creates alignment and clarity. It builds connection, it creates accountability, and that timing and consistency really matters. So this is the cadence that we found to be really successful for our clients and really in our businesses that we've owned and operated as well. We have an annual planning once a year, ideally before January, November, December, where we're setting our goals for the next year. We're looking ahead to what we want to accomplish down the road, a big picture vision of what we want. And we're really coming together as a team, right? And building that team bond and relationship. We have a quarterly planning rhythm. Every quarter, we're coming together, we're setting our objectives for the quarter, and we're getting on the same page of what our priorities are each quarter. The strategy workshop is something that's important. If you can only do it one time a year, I would do it before we have our annual planning session. The point is to have some time to brainstorm, to think about the blue sky vision of what you might have, and talk about some key strategic initiatives that you might want to tackle in the quarter or the year ahead. That way, when we come to the planning session, we're ready to go. We've already done the brainstorming and we've come with some ideas ahead of time. How do we keep this going operationally? We've created all these wonderful goals for the quarter or for the year. How do we stay accountable to that? We have a weekly meeting. We call it the on track meeting, 90 minutes every week, same time, same place, same people, your leadership team. And we're staying accountable to our quarterly numbers and the objectives that we've set for that quarter. And then I do find a daily huddle is helpful, especially for businesses like wineries, like restaurants, where we're hustling, we're moving, there's a lot of people involved. It's just a quick 15-minute before the day starts. What are the top priorities for the day? What are the fires that have popped up that we might need to put out today? So we find that this meeting rhythm is really the cadence that helps create a proactive way to set our goals and keep us on track for those goals. All right, objectives and key results. That's why we're here. I needed to set us up for that. So we had that framework around setting the priorities. So before we dive into looking at examples of that, I want to highlight a company that we work with at Cruise called RecycleWorks. And Dan, the owner, the founder, has this quote here: OKRs help us stay on track and lay the groundwork to take us from where we are today to where we want to go, right? And we're going to revisit RecycleWorks a little bit later in the presentation today. But they're a family-owned business. They create sustainable upcycling solutions for beverage and food service companies. They lacked internal structure, which with that lack of structure, our employees weren't aligned. They weren't aligned with the values. They weren't aligned with where the company was going. And the family dynamics within the business was a challenge to balance those dynamics. And they focused too much attention on the day-to-day, right? Instead of taking a step back and looking at the long-term solutions. OKRs allow us to take a step back and think about what we need to do and where we want to go. And then the key results and that on-track meeting every week gets us in the business again to move those priorities forward. So the formula for objectives and key results are the objective. What is it you want to achieve? What is it that you want to accomplish? This objective will inform your actions, and it's not always a measurable thing. It can be dreamy almost, right? And the key results are how you measure that progress, the benchmarks you're going to use to track your path towards that objective. Generally, we have 3 to 5 benchmarks there to help us assess the progress. And I like to focus on measurable outcomes, right? So we can say at the end of the quarter, yes, we did this. No, we did not. Some of the key results can be project-based, things that are going to help us get there, but really we're looking at those measurable outcomes. Okay, our formula: objective, key result, key result, key result. I will objective as measured by key results. Now, again, going back to this alignment piece, I know I'm like hitting home on the alignment piece a lot, but it's really, really important. And when our team is aligned and rowing in the same direction, this is when the magic happens, right? And this is when we're actually moving towards these bigger picture goals that we want to achieve. So generally, we have our senior leaders, the ownership team, a CEO, anybody at that high level of the business that can both plan strategically and tactically at the same time. We then have the managers who see the vision of the company's priorities and then take that vision and take those priorities and see how it can weave within their departments. And I'll have examples of this. And then the teams, they're more engaged. There's an understanding of why they're here. There's clarity on what we're doing, right? And they're empowered to find ways how they can contribute to that. There's this ownership piece from top to bottom that really helps create that alignment within a company. So why does alignment matter in wine? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I picked a few here. Tight margins, tight margins. A lot of companies that I work with have tight margins and seasonal swings, right? It requires, like it says here, ruthless focus. We have multiple channels from vineyard operations to tasting room, direct to consumer, wine club, distribution, all different channels on how we organize our business. And then there's cross-functional handoffs, right? We all need to be aligned on what, our operations are doing to our tasting room. All of it needs to come together so we're rowing in the same direction. I use that analogy a lot, but it's we're in the same boat and we're all rowing in the same direction. And then the OKRs translate strategy into execution across every team in your company, whether that's one team in your company or 7 teams in your company. Objectives clients use today. These are my clients that I work with personally. I work with a flower farm company, and these are some main objectives that we were working on over the course of last year. One was, I'm going to start with the revenue one, increase revenue by 15%, right? Great. That's a lovely objective. How are we going to do that? Right, is the question. And when we started to dig into that, we realized that she had a really tough time with the weather this past year, and it really affected her growing season. And so we decided, Grace, that's not her real name, but I'll use the name Grace. She's been focusing on wanting to create agrotourism at the farm, right? Creating an event space. And we identified that, we had a barn on the farm that she'd been wanting to, you know, change and do some work on and create an event space there. And that became an urgent priority. We were growing in creating a new revenue stream in bringing in that tourism piece of the business. So that it was part of increasing the revenue by 15%. And then the second idea was, well, we can't do that if we don't have the right people in place. And so we were working very diligently to train her management team to take over a lot of the tasks that she was doing in order for her to focus on the bigger picture strategy. Restaurant group, a husband and wife team, just adore them. And the main objectives that we had identified this past quarter was the 4th restaurant was launched and thriving. Now, when we created these objectives, they had 1 restaurant. We launched 2 additional restaurants within 1 year, and then we're focusing on launching the 4th, which I think we're going to hit this, should be done by January 1st. Now that's a big objective, and that's a lot to accomplish in a year. So, we focused on team, we focused on getting the team understanding financials, right? So all of these little key results that help us understand how we're going to accomplish launching the 4th concept within a year's time. Increase gross margins to 40% and being recognized as one of the top 50 restaurants in the country by national publications, which they accomplished. I'm very proud of them. And the other client that I work with is a wine importing and distribution business. And one of the big concepts was John needed to fully step away from his business while on paternity leave. Another wrench in that is that his wife was full-time in the business too. So they both needed to step away full-time. So what do we do about that? We needed to create a plan around that. So again, training team, understanding who was taking what, getting everyone involved, right? Creating that alignment so John and his wife could really enjoy the birth of their first child. We created a core wines portfolio program in order to differentiate himself from the rest of the market, and another goal of increasing net profit to 10%. There's always a finance OKR in our OKRs for the year and for the quarter. So think about your business. I've created some OKRs directly relating to the wine industry. So as we go through these, I want you to think about your business. Imagine every team from the vineyard to the tasting room knowing exactly how their work contributes to company goals. Think about what are 1 or 2 high-level objectives that you need to nail in order to be able to grow your business. What are the dreams for your organization? What's that blue sky vision? Or What's a big problem that you need to solve? Think big, right? The point of objectives and key results is that the objective allows you to stretch. If we're not stretching, then we're not pushing the business forward, right? So think big. Aim for stretch goals instead of safe goals. The objectives can be soft, right? Doesn't need to be very specific, but our key results are going to be smart goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Some failure is expected. I would actually say, I want to see failure. I want to see us hitting 80%. If we're hitting 100% of our goals, then that tells me we didn't stretch big enough or we didn't think big enough. And at the end of the day, when we have the team involved, don't tie the OKRs directly to compensation. So if you hit your OKR, you'll get X bonus or a raise, right? That creates safety, right? They're not going to think big and stretch on how we can move forward. And ensure that strategy, ops, people, and finance, those four buckets that I talked about earlier, are fully addressed with the OKRs in your business. Okay, annual OKRs. These are the ones that I've created for the wine business. So this is something we're thinking about for 2026, right? This is one of our big objective strategic goals for 2026. Deliver a profitable, high quality 2025 vintage while strengthening brand loyalty and direct to consumer growth. Great. How are we going to do that? One, achieve 10% net profit margin versus last year. Now, you're going to see names next to this. This is another piece of the puzzle that's really important. We're going to have one person owning each key result here. It's their charge. It's what they're driving for the quarter. It doesn't mean they're doing it alone. They're going to get help and support from the team. But at the end of the day, when we say, is this done or not done? That person, in this case, Bethany, can say, yes, we achieved 10% net profit. Maintain 90% product quality ratings, internal and external. We have Sarah, Director of Vineyard Operations. Increase direct-to-consumer revenue by 20%, 25%. Brian, our Director of Retail Operations, is going to own that. And then improve wine club retention to 80%. And that's up from 71% of the prior year. And Kristen, our Director of Marketing, is going to own that one. So this is one OKR that we've set for the year, a company-wide OKR that we've set for the year. So you'll see, again, names are tied to each key result, and different departments are tied to each key result. So now we're going to talk about how that cascades down to the rest of the company. Quarterly OKRs. Those were the annual OKRs. So how do we break this down into what is the priority for this quarter? So one of the key results named in the annual objectives and key results was reduce operational waste by 15%. And Sarah is the person who is owning that key result. So now we're saying, okay, this is our objective for the year. Now, what can we do this quarter to hit this objective? We can finish all harvest processing by October 31st, conduct soil and nutrient analysis on 100% of the vineyard blocks by November 15th, reduce labor costs by 8% through improved scheduling and task batching, implement cover crop and winter pruning plan for all acreage by December 15th, and then develop the 2026 crop yield forecast model with the historical data accuracy of plus or minus 5%. So you can see here, these key results are very specific. They're very targeted. And at the end of the quarter, we're going to know, yes, we hit it. No, we did not hit it. So how does this translate to the department, right? Again, thinking back to the annual OKRs that we set for the year, how does this relate to getting alignment throughout the entire company in each department? Well, one of our OKRs, one of the main objectives was increase direct-to-consumer revenue by 25%. And Brian, who's in charge of retail operations, is the one who's owning that overall objective. So we bring that back to our team. And Brian might be the only one on that team, right? Or Brian might have a handful of team members that he works with, right, within that department. So, how are we going to do this? We're going to increase our average guest spend from 72 to 85 by the end of the year, convert 10% of new visitors into wine club members, grow our email capture rate to 90% of our POS transactions, and launch holiday gift bundles with 25,000 in sales for Q4. So this is how we cascade this down to our departmental OKRs, right? So you can see here, thinking big for the company for the year, bringing it to our departments, and how can we as a department come together and own this objective, right? And contribute to the success of this objective. Another departmental OKR we have is within marketing, right? Improve wine club retention 80%, up from 71% last year. Now, Kristen, who's in charge of marketing, she owns this overall objective for this department. So how are we going to do this? Retention rate. Retention rate is one of my favorite scorecard metrics to track. So we're usually going to see, in working with me, you're usually going to see a retention rate metric kicking around somewhere. Generate 15,000 in add-on revenue from the holiday promotions, host 2 member events in person or virtual with 100 plus RSVPs each, and implement personalized renewal email sequences with the 50% open rate. So this is how we are going to determine that we're hitting this objective of improving the wine club retention, right? Very specific action items and key results. And I forgot the last one here, but conduct exit survey analysis for 100% of cancellations, right? Why are our customers churning, right? So identify those top 3 churns. Going to take a step back, going to let all that sink in. I know that was a lot of information, a lot of numbers, a lot of very specific goals, but I wanted to give you an idea of what it could look like in the wine industry, specifically to a vineyard and a tasting room. Now, again, stepping back and thinking the big picture of how we approach OKRs in the ecosystem of the growth method, we first think about our North Star, right? And there's all sorts of names for this. I like North Star because it's a very visual thing for me. Where are we going? I think that's a really important question to ask the owners, founders, the really senior leadership team members. Where are we going with this company? What is the big vision in 10 years from now? What is it that we want to have accomplished with our business? We then look at strategy, and here we call it 6 W's. I like to think of this as the heart and soul of the company. When we're talking about the 6 W's, we're talking about who we are, our core values, right? Which helps really drive the culture of our business, who we are, what we do very specifically. What is it that we do, right? What's our niche? Who we help, our target market, who we serve. We're thinking about ways we earn. These are our different revenue streams, right? Whether that's direct to consumer, it's tasting room, what have you. Like we really flush that out. So thinking about the strategy of our business. Then we look at our 3-year objectives, which is probably one of my favorite tools that we have. And 3-year objectives are thinking 3 years out from now. We can allow us to have a big vision of what it looks like in our company, but 3-year objectives also, we want to get granular. Okay, 3 years from now, what's our revenue? What's our gross profit? What's our net profit? What are the key metrics that are telling us we're hitting those numbers, right? We plan that out. We then look at the company through the lens of, okay, if we have to, hit this revenue number, what's the people structure look like? What's the team here supporting us look like, right? What's our marketing look like? What's the strategy look like? What does the operations look like? If we're going to hit this revenue, do we need to have a bigger production facility, right? So the 3-year objectives, again, allow us to dream, but also get tactical on what that can look like. And the 3-year objectives are then what drives our annual objectives. We look at this 3-year picture and we say, okay, if we want to get there in 3 years, what do we need to do this year to move in that direction? You're seeing a theme here, thinking big and then whittling it down, right? So we've set our annual objectives and then we look at, okay, if this is what we want to achieve this year, what's our main focus for Q1, right? And then we get into that quarterly rhythm. Q1 focus, Q2 focus, 3 and 4. How are we keeping ourselves accountable to the priorities that we've set for the quarter? Like I said earlier, the weekly on-track meeting, same time, same day, same place, same people every week, holding ourselves accountable to our objectives and our numbers that we've set for the quarter. So remember Recycle Works? We talked about them in the beginning. In 2.5 years, they truly reinvented themselves. Their revenue grew by 320%. They raised their profit margins by 18 points, and they multiplied the value of their company 5-fold. So I find this remarkable in such a short time frame. So it's very clear to me that when your team has clarity, the growth becomes intentional and not accidental, right? I go back to thinking about my time at Union Square Donuts. I started that business because I was a baker, I was a pastry chef, and it was a passion project for me. I didn't know what I was doing business-wise. And we were always in triage mode, always in triage mode. I knew that we had something bigger ahead of us, but I couldn't figure out how to get there because I was stuck in it every day. And that was a really frustrating place to be. And I think that if we had some of these tools in place, that we would be in a different spot today. And I might actually still be at the company. But inevitably we didn't. We were able to grow, but it was painful. And I wish I knew then what I know now. Again, intentional, not accidental. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, being intentional about how we grow and what that looks like. So objectives that had helped Recycle Works, they added an additional disposal facility. They built out middle management. This is key. And generally, when I work with clients, the people structure and the people function is the one that we spend a lot of time on in the beginning. They built out a transportation department that could scale with their growth. Oop. And just another reminder here that, the OKRs, they're a planning tool and a communication system within your company, and that the growth doesn't happen by chance, right? We build it one objective, one key result, and one team at a time. That is the presentation for today. And, we have a QR code up here. If you'd like to schedule a free consultation to learn how we can support you, one of our core values, which is in the strategy section, one of our core values is help first. And we truly, truly lead by that. So please feel free to schedule a free consultation. And if you'd like to get in touch with me specifically, this is my email here at the bottom of the screen, heather.schmidt@Cruise&Co. Again, if any questions pop up from the presentation today that we didn't cover or that was missed, just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to chat, always happy to share, and have a help first call if it is valuable to you. So again, I want to thank the Wine Industry Network for having me here today, for everyone for attending and showing up and being engaged. It truly is a pleasure, and I feel very lucky to be doing the work that I do. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, thank you, Heather. That was great. And thanks everyone in the audience for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Be sure to like our YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when we relaunch the series in 2026. Again, before I go, I want to thank our sponsors, Moss Adams and Baker Tilly, as well as our supporting sponsors, Mitroff Consulting, Executive Search and Recruitment, Protea Financial Wine Accountants, and Wine Industry Careers Job Board. It's wineindustrycareers.com. Thanks again, everyone.